Hi, we're here today to talk about JobOps, job management software. JobOps was specifically developed to provide enhanced job management functionality for Sage's MAS90 and MAS200 accounting solutions. Estimating and configuring orders, purchasing to the job, scheduling, job tracking and costing, field service and dispatch. JobOps lets you get jobs done on time and profitably. Today we'll focus on those issues of the industries that make, install, and service products. We'll show you how JobOps with MAS90 addresses those issues. We'll use the typical workflow within those industries to demonstrate some of the features. My name is Stacy Schultz and I'm the JobOps Channel Manager. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. When trying to find a system to upgrade the business, there are typically two key influences, operations and finance. It's difficult to find a system that addresses both the financial as well as the operational concerns. JobOps with MAS90 addresses these concerns. JobOps focuses on 5 areas of concern. How can we help you get things done faster and more accurately? Adjust your production schedule so that you can deliver your product on time. Allow purchasing to determine when to buy parts to meet the schedule, and track the actual work that's been done on the job to allow customer service to relay accurate information to the customer. All these issues boil down to on-time deliveries and profitability. Other systems are typically rooted in either operations or, not and, finance. Therefore, it's hard to find a system that addresses both concerns. You get the best of both worlds with JobOps and MAS90. MAS90 and JobOps is designed to work the way you do. JobOps will help you quickly and accurately estimate your product, easily turn that estimate into an order, which can be reviewed before releasing to the production floor. It will help you adjust your production schedule so that you can deliver your product on time, and it allows purchasing to determine when to buy parts to meet the schedule. It will track the actual work that's been done for job costing to allow customer service to relay accurate information to the customer. We're going to start off today at estimating. There are 2 primary concerns in estimating, speed and accuracy. Operations is concerned with the speed at which the estimate can be created because 80% of the time, the first quote delivered wins the business. But finance is concerned with the accuracy of the estimates since inaccurate quotes result in lost business or lost margins. The combination of MAS90 and JobOps addresses these concerns. You can achieve faster and more accurate quoting since estimators can copy a job from templates or previous jobs and modify them for the specific job. The system will provide additional accuracy by allowing an automatic update of the material cost in this estimate to reflect your most recent purchases. Now I'll switch over to the software to show you how you'd create a price quote. There are several different methods for creating an estimate. Today I'll show you how to create the estimate using a template as well as our product configurator. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with creating a price quote. And I'm going to choose an existing customer that we have in our database called Honeywell. And this quote is going to be good through the end of the year. And what I'm going to quote is a custom computer server. And I'll do a detailed estimate, and we're going to quote 4 of these. And when I get to the end of the line or click Accept, it's going to ask me, do I want to create this work ticket or this detailed estimate from a template? And I'm going to say no, just so that we can show you the different ways that you can actually pull in this information. And the information that I'm referring to is basically the bill of materials and the router. So it's going to show you the different steps that this product must go through to be able to be made, as well as what parts are needed on those steps. You can create the information manually, so build it from the ground up. You can pull it in from a template that you have of an item that's either similar or the same, and pull the information in and modify it for this particular quote. You can pull it in from an open job. So if you have an open job that's similar to it, you can pull that in and modify it or do the exact same thing as what's on that job. You can pull it in from a historic job. If you pull it in from a historic job, you can pull in your budgeted costs or your actual costs, depending on what was most accurate. Or last but not least, you can use the product configurator. And I'll run through that in a few minutes. But I'm going to go ahead and pull this in from a template at this point. And the information that it's pulled in is, again, the router. So in this case, we need to configure the components, install the operating system, install other software, test it, and ship it. And if I drill into any of these steps, I'm going to have a bunch of different things that are associated with it. I can have different attachments, so I can have different drawings, CAD drawings, pictures, quality procedures, any kind of documentation that you want to associate with this particular job, you can attach to the job so people can always access that information. So we'll go ahead and grab a picture that we have out here. Actually, it's a map. And you can take a look at what that is. And from this point forward, anybody can take a look at what that is. So we'll accept that. And it's going to put a user stamp, whoever put it out there, as well as a date stamp for when it was added. And it'll keep that information throughout the whole process. And if you had standard ones that you always wanted to attach, you can include that in the template and it would pull that information in as well, instead of having to add it each time. You can have text associated with a step. So this again was pulled in from the template saying, okay, you need to confirm the standard configuration with this customer. But at this point, you could also add additional quote notes that will follow it through and stay with the history with this particular quote / soon-to-be order and job. If you go to the parts entry, you're going to see all the different parts that are associated with this particular step. If you know at this point that you don't need one of the parts, you can go ahead and highlight it and delete it. And if you need other parts, you can quickly add them from your inventory list. And once you have everything done within the parts themselves, one of the other things that you can take a look at is if you highlight any of the items, you're immediately going to be able to see what your in-stock quantity is, how many you have available, based on what orders you have out there already, and any POs that you have out there. So in this case, again, this is only a quote, so this hasn't hit the radar yet for the fact that we're going to need to purchase it. But at this point, we have none available to be able to use on this order. So it would trigger purchasing to go ahead and purchase additional ones once we turn this into an order. If we go ahead and go to the summary tab, the first thing it's going to ask me if we want to do is recalculate the budgets. And basically what that's saying is that you purchased or you created this template 6 days ago, 6 months ago, 6 years ago, whatever. And you've been purchasing all these parts since then. Do you want to use your most accurate costs associated with these parts? So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And on the summary tab, you can see the amount of hours that it pulled in from the template for what these 4 units are going to take to make. In this case, it's 16 hours. If we know that this is a more difficult unit to make or it's easier, whatever the case may be, you can go ahead and adjust the budget for this particular estimate. And it will immediately update your labor cost as soon as you leave that field. So now I have $384 worth of labor versus the $308, I believe it was. But then you also have a bucket of the summary of what the material costs are at this point for this particular step. So basically, once you go through your whole job or your whole detailed estimate for what it's going to take to make this particular thing, you can go ahead and accept it and go into the step recap. The step recap is going to show you step by step what your estimated hours are, what your labor budget is, and what your material budget is, or outside services, as well as a total of what it's going to cost to make this particular thing that you're quoting for them. If you have the rights to do so, you can go into the profit button. And within the profit button, you're going to see what your projected revenue is that, in this case, was pulled in from the template. And based on that revenue, how much profit you're looking at and what the percentage is. And in this case, I'm a little bit greedier than this, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust the price. And you can do a profit percent or a markup percent. And I'm going to say we need 30% profit on these. And I'm going to use a $100 rounding factor just to make it a round number. So instead of $14,000 for the 4 units, we're going to quote $19,500. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed, and it's now updated by unit cost to reflect the $19,500 that we wanted for the complete project. So once you're done with that, you're basically done with your quote. So you'd be able to go out to your quote again, and at this point you'd be able to print it. And we'll go ahead and preview this. And this is a crystal form. So this form is going to show whatever you want it to show for the most part. In our case, we have what we're quoting, the quantity, as well as the price and the amount, and who we're quoting it to. And we included our logo, etc. But you can include your T's and C's, you can include whatever information you need within the form, the crystal form itself, so that the quote looks like you need it to look. If I go back to our quote now, let's go ahead and run through another line on here from using the product configurator. So I'm going to add my line, and we're going to do one of these. And this time it says, do I want to create the detailed estimate from the configurator? And I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And that brings up our product configurator. The product configurator is basically a rules-based wizard that's going to take you through some questions to ask you, what is this thing that you're making this time? In this case, we have a list of server models that are available. And it says pick which model it is, so we'll say it's a Model 300, and you can have different pictures associated with the different models. Does the customer want additional memory, yes or no? If I say no, the picture goes away. And the next question is, are additional drives required? If I go back and say yes, I keep the picture, and the next question is, what kind of additional memory do I want, and how many of them do I want? So we can answer those, and now I get to the question about additional drives. So it's going to change the questions that it's asking you based on the answers that you've given it to this point. Are additional drives required? Another way to look at yes or no questions. I'm going to say yes. Okay, based on that, select the drive size from the list. If we do a lookup, this is the list from our inventory master of the drives that are available. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want the 50 terabyte one. Is there optional software, yes or no? I'll go ahead and say yes. Select the optional software. Let's do Lotus. And now we're done with the configurator. We can create text that is created based on your answers. So in this case, it's a Model 300, 256 added memory, a 50 terabyte drive, and we're going to add Lotus Notes. And we can also create a smart part number that basically is a more cryptic version of that same information. If we go into the results button, it's kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, but it's going to show you, again, what the answers were, what the quantity of those parts are based on that answer, what the price is that's being added, because it came up with the price for the whole kit and caboodle based on the way we answered the questions. It's also going to create your router your setup and runtime for your router, as well as add any kind of additional text and description based on the answers that we gave it. If we know that Lotus wasn't the proper thing to choose at this point, we can go ahead and double click on it, go back to that point in the configurator, choose Microsoft Office, and then fast forward to the end, and now it's changed our option there to Microsoft Office as well as the price based on that. And you can go ahead and generate the detailed estimate at this point then. And we're not going to take a look at it because it looks very similar to the other one. So two different methods for basically accomplishing the same thing. Now let's go back to the PowerPoint for a minute. The issues with production control, let's see, the story continues. I've shown you how JobOps can quickly and easily create a price quote. Now we'll turn this quote into an order. As part of the transition from price quote to an order, I'll also show you job planning. The issues with production control are, again, speed and accuracy. Operations is concerned with being able to verify what was quoted before it's released to the production floor to catch any potential mistakes made during quoting. Finance is concerned with the loss margin associated with inaccurate quoting and being able to track the estimates versus the actuals. As part of the transition from a price quote to an order, I'll show you how we're able to notify engineering that the order was received so that they can review what was quoted to eliminate possible mistakes. I'll also show you how the system can track estimates versus actuals to fine-tune the quoting process and evaluate real-time profitability. This will allow you to correct issues before dollars are lost. So we'll go ahead and go back into the software now. And we'll go back to our quote. And at this point, there's several different things that we can do. If the customer wants to place the order, but they need to know when they could receive it by, you can go ahead and go out to the promise date and go to our capable to promise. Within the capable to promise, it's going to tell us that we can get it done by this particular date, and here are the details of how we calculated that. And you can see from here that basically we can't start this right away. We can't start it for another 10 days because we're missing this multi thing. And it's not going to be available till the 15th if we order it now. So once we have that item, we'd be able to go through the different steps and complete the actual server. So that would be our material constraint. So we'll go ahead and say, you know what, even though we can get this done by the end of September, I'm going to say the end of October just to have some extra time in there for us to get it done. And I'm going to turn this into an order with the 31st of October as our due date. So it's going to ask me, do I want to convert this quote to a standard order? And we're going to go ahead and say yes. And now when we go back into that order, now that it's turned into an order, we can drill into the details and see all the information that we had seen before. So if we go to our step 10, we can see the quote notes that were added during the quoting process. And if we have additional order notes, we can add those as well. We can see any attachments that were attached during the quoting process or pulled in from the template. And we can add new ones at this point. If we want to notify engineering that this has been received, we can go ahead and change the status on this and say it's released to engineering. And we can trigger emails to be sent based on this change so that engineering would receive an email saying, hey, this order has been received, you guys need to review it and make sure that before it's released that it is good to go. If we go to the parts entry on this, again, we're going to see the information that we saw earlier. And if we highlight any of the items, like the one we had looked at before, now we can see we have 18 of them in stock, -5 available, because now we have 23 of them on order, on different orders, versus the 18 that were on there previously. And we still don't have any that are going to be in purchasing. So this will then notify purchasing that they need to purchase this particular part for this job. And again, if we had, originally it was quoted out at 20 hours worth of labor for this particular step, but if we needed to revise that, we could revise that at this point too in our revised budget bucket. So let's go ahead and go back to our presentation then. Okay, now we've created the price quote by pulling the information in from a template and modifying it. We've turned the quote into an order and notified engineering that it needs to be reviewed before releasing it to the production floor. Now we need to give purchasing the tools to determine what parts need to be purchased and when they need to buy them by to meet the schedule. The issues within purchasing are typically material shortages. Operations is concerned with getting parts on time to eliminate or reduce scheduling delays. Finance is concerned with additional expedite and overtime costs associated with material shortages. To reduce or eliminate material shortages, we'll show how JobOps creates a to-do list for purchasing and allows them to auto-generate the purchase orders, as well as how JobOps will consolidate demand to leverage your buying power. We'll go ahead and go back into the software now. Okay, let's close our sales order. Now we're going to go ahead and schedule our job just to make sure that we have it on the scheduling board so we have the details as far as when we need to purchase our materials. And within the scheduling engine, what it's done is that it's gone through and it said, okay, we're going to have this done by the 28th, which is what I told it, because I wanted 3 days of cushion time between the due date and when we actually had it completed. And it was reverse scheduled. And basically what the scheduling engine does is it goes out and says, okay, based on the fact that we want to get this done by the 28th of October, I'm going to start going backwards in time from the 28th for all the different steps, as well as the material lead times, and say, okay, when can I start this job to be able to get it done by the 28th? If it kept on going backwards in time, came up to today's date, and still wasn't able to start it, it would turn around at that point and forward schedule it and say, okay, based on that fact, I'm going to start this tomorrow. When can I get it done by? And then it would tell us that, hey, you can't get this done in time for your promise date, so you may want to take a look at it and see how you want to address that. But now that that's excuse me, scheduled, let's go ahead and go into the purchasing. And you can purchase by different methods, by individual jobs, or all your open jobs, or by inventory items. And if you do it by inventory items, it's going to take into account your jobs as well as your minimum inventory levels. So I'm going to go ahead and do it by inventory item. And I'm going to do it between now and the 31st of October. And I'm going to have it generate the file now. Now it's gone through 194 different records to come up with a list that we're going to show you now. I'll go ahead and click Continue. And now I have two buttons available to me, the items that I need to purchase and the items that I need to make. And basically it's the same information, so we'll just take a look at one of them. We'll take a look at the complete list here. And this is a list of all the different parts that we need to purchase to support our jobs and our inventory levels. You can see the first few columns are gray, which means they're not modifiable. The other columns that are white are modifiable on the fly. So we can take a look at the information and see how these suggestions were created. If I highlight one of the items, I can drill into the details. From here we can see that we have 4 different jobs that require this particular item. 3 of them are pulling it from stock. 1 wants it to be bought directly to the job for whatever reason. We have 22 of them on hand. We need 17 total. We have a minimum stock level of 8. Based on that, we need 3 more. If we pull them all from stock, we need 3 more to get back up to our minimum stock level of 8. If I drill into the inventory on this, we're going to see what a time phase version of this demand is. So in this case, we have 1 job that requires 1 that hasn't been scheduled yet. We have another job that requires 4 that needs them on the 10th, another 2 on the 16th, and 10 more on the 24th. So if I know that this vendor is really good at getting me the stuff on time, I may want to put this on hold. But if I know the vendor has a tendency to be late, I may want to get these going. It really is just to provide you with information so you can decide how to deal with it. You can also see on here that we have a minimum order quantity set up of 20. So if I go back out to the main screen, what it's showing me is that I need to purchase 20 of these, and that's based on that minimum order quantity because I fell below my minimum stock level. Now we have our complete list, and we can filter this list in many different ways depending on how you want to look at the information. We can look at it by individual sales orders, by a specific buyer or planner. I like looking at it by vendor because then I can look at everything I need from that vendor at one point, call up the vendor, negotiate what I need to negotiate, and then move on. So in this case, we'll sort it by vendor, and I need 2 different parts from Borg. If I call Borg up and they can't get me the part, I can go ahead and go to my vendor list and choose an alternate vendor to purchase this from, and then it will show up in their list. If I negotiate a better price, I can go ahead and update that price on the fly right now before I actually issue the PO. If they say I'm getting close to a volume discount, I can take a look at all the parts that I typically buy from Borg and say, you know what, I can always use a few of these, so I'm going to purchase those to be able to get up to the volume discount, to be able to get the additional money off of it. And again, this is all to help you control your cash flow. So you buy what you need, when you need it, for the jobs that you have out there. So now if I go back to the items to buy, I now have the 3 items that I'm going to purchase. Once everything is finalized, I can go ahead and click the Create PO button. I can create a new one, add to an existing new one that hasn't been issued to them, or add and put it on hold. So we'll go ahead and create a new one. And you can see from here that we created a purchase order with 5 lines on it for the 3 items that we're purchasing. And if you keep an eye on the background here, when I click Continue, the information is going to disappear because this is a virtual to-do list. It's going to show you what you need to do, and then once you're done with that, it's going to take it off your list of things that need to get done. And then you can move on to the next vendor and do the same thing for them. So let's go ahead and take a look at the purchase order that was created. And it's going to be the last PO on the list. And I have my different lines that are on the purchase order. But if I highlight any of them, you can see that the first 2 lines are the exact same item number. And if you watch this area right here, when I scroll down, the reason we have them on 2 separate lines is because that the second one is being purchased directly to the job. And basically what that means is that when we receive this particular item, what's going to happen is the $200 is going to go directly into WIP for that job. Whereas on the other ones, when the parts get issued to the job, the dollars that go to WIP will be however you value your inventory. So if you use an average cost, it may be $190 or $210 that goes to WIP versus the actual of $200. So we'll go ahead and get out of here and go back to our presentation. So now we've created the price quote by pulling the information in from a template and modifying it. We've turned the quote into an order and notified engineering that it needs to be reviewed before releasing to the production floor. We've given purchasing the tools to determine what parts need to be purchased and when they need to buy them by to meet the schedule. Now we need to see if we can produce the product on time. The issue in scheduling is on-time deliveries. Operations knows that the schedule will get overloaded and is concerned with being able to see the bottlenecks. Finance is concerned with the fact that the bottlenecks cause overtime, costly production changes, and late deliveries, which may lead to lost customers. I'll show you how JobOps will allow operations to load new jobs into the schedule, be able to identify problems, and be able to address those problems. JobOps will produce reports to allow finance to determine if bottlenecks are being caused by poor planning or actual equipment constraints, so that they can determine if a new machine is needed. Now we'll go ahead and go back into the software again. Oops. And we'll go to the scheduling board. And I've already loaded our particular job onto the scheduling board, so we'll just go ahead and take a look at the scheduling board itself. The way the scheduling board is laid out is you have days of the week across the top, your different resources down the left-hand side. Each block on the scheduling board is a step on the job. So if you highlight any of the steps, it'll crosshatch it, and it'll tell you what your job number is, what you're making on that job, who you're making it for, what your promise date is on it, when you're expecting to get it done, as well as what your capacity is, and how many hours of that capacity you're using. The way we have our options set up within this data, the green with the black outline means that everything's good. You don't have to worry about it. It's on schedule to be done by your promise date for that particular client. If we move further out in time, we start seeing the other colors that are available. Yellow means that we're within a 3-day window of our promise date. So if anything goes wrong on these jobs, we could go overdue. So in this case, our promise date is the 16th. Our production due date is the 16th. So if anything happens, we may go overdue on that particular job. And red means that we are overdue. So in this case, our promise date is the 16th. Our production due date is the 18th. So we are going to go overdue on this particular one. Now the first thing most people would do within the scheduling module would be create a what if, because you don't want to be playing with your actual data. So we'll go ahead and create a what if schedule, and now we can see what we want to do to address the issues that we're seeing. One of the other things that I didn't speak about earlier is that we also have this weird job. It's green, but it's got the hot pink outline. So the question is, what's wrong with this job? Because that hot pink is a warning color for you. So if we take a look at it, we can see that our promise date is the end of October. We're going to be done with it by the middle of September, so that's no big deal. But you can also see that we have 8 hours of capacity and 13 hours scheduled. So the question is, what do you want to do about that? If you have capacity the day before or the day after, you could drag and drop one of the jobs to see if that alleviates the concern, but it's still highlighted, so it doesn't. Same thing with a cross-train work center. You can drag and drop it to a different work center to see if that relieves the issue. Still have an issue. You could drill into that particular work center and say, you know what? On the 10th, when I am having the issue, I'm just going to go ahead and say on the 10th of September, Instead of 8 hours, I'm going to work 14 hours that day, and I'm going to authorize overtime to be able to get these jobs done on time. So we'll go ahead and accept that and exit out of here, and now it's resolved our issue. Because again, the whole philosophy of the scheduling board is management by exception. Show me where I have my issues so I can deal with those issues, and let me not worry about the rest of it. One of the other cool things that you can do within the scheduling board is you can set your material exceptions. And what this is going to do is it's going to go out and look at all the jobs that we have on our scheduling board for the time frame that I entered in, and it's going to say, what do we have scheduled in that time frame that we don't have the materials for in-house right now? And it came up with 12 different jobs that we don't have the materials in-house for right now. And now I've got a bunch of other jobs that are now highlighted. So the question is, what are the exceptions? You can highlight the job and drill into the exceptions and see what product it is that you're missing or what component that you're missing is. You can highlight that particular thing and go drill into your inventory and see if you have any on hand. And if you do, if any other jobs have, if you've issued that part to any other jobs, you could rob Peter to pay Paul. Or if you have any on any purchase orders that you could expedite or whatever. Again, it's just supplying you with the information so you can decide how you want to address the issue. So once you take a look at that, one of the other pieces of information you may want to know is, okay, are there any other steps on this job that I'm going to run into the same issue further on down the line? So in this case, we're missing this part here, but if I click on the all steps, there's another part that we're missing as well. So do I want to jump through hoops on the one issue only to be stopped at the next step? Or do we want to say at this point that, you know what, we're not going to be able to get this started on time, let's just move it out and deal with it next week instead of this week, or whatever the case may be. But be able to get the parts in on time, or get the parts in next week to be able to support this job. So again, it's providing you with information on what the situation is so that you can decide how you want to address the issues. So we'll go ahead and get out of here now. Once you get back to the main screen, you can click on the exit what if, and the question's going to come up, do you want to apply your schedule? And basically what that's saying is that you've made some changes to compared to what your real projection schedule is. Do you want to implement those changes, yes or no? If you do, then you click yes. If you want to discard them, you click no. So I'm going to go ahead and accept the changes. And now on our real scheduling board, if I highlight the job that we changed, you can now see that we have the 14 hours of capacity that I had increased it to because I authorized overtime. So we'll go ahead and get out of here now and go back to the presentation. All right, now we've created the price quote by pulling in the information from the template and modifying it. We've turned the quote into an order and notified engineering that it needs to be reviewed before releasing to the production floor. We've given purchasing the tools to determine what parts need to be purchased and when they need to buy them by to meet the schedule. We've addressed the scheduling issues on the production floor. Now we need to collect the real-time data about the job. When talking about tracking and costing, what we're really talking about is job profitability. Operations is concerned because they don't have real-time visibility into the current job status or potential cost overruns in production. Finance is concerned with the fact that it takes 10 profitable jobs to make up for one loser, and it's too late to do anything about it if you don't know about it until the end of the month. JobOps Time Tracker will give operations real-time visibility into the current job status and potential cost overruns in production. Time Tracker will also give finance real-time visibility into variance reporting so that adjustments can be made before it's too late. So we'll go ahead and go back into the software. So now we'll go ahead and take a look at a traveler that most people would use something like this or something similar to this for their paperwork that they have out on the shop floor. So we'll take a look at our traveler. And again, this is a crystal form, so you can make it look and feel however you want it to look and feel. But we've included barcodes, what the item is that we're creating, the quantity, when it's promised by, and then we'd be able to see the different steps as well as the materials needed on those steps. As I said before, we added the quote notes and the order notes. That information could follow through to the traveler itself, as well as if you're purchasing something on a purchase order, that information can be included on your traveler as well, whereas all the rest of them you're pulling from stock. But if you're using something like this for your shop floor, you can then go into the data collection module, and basically all the different entry modes are similar. They're going to ask for the same information, but it's going to depend on if you're just going to have one person accessing that through that computer, or if you're going to have multiple employees accessing the same screen from the computers, or if you're going to have an admin enter the information after the fact. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's still going to collect the same information. So I'll assume that we're going to have a computer out on the floor, and that multiple employees are going to enter in their data, their labor information out on that computer. The first thing it asks you for is your employee number, and if you have a badge, you could scan it, you can type it in, you can look it up, whatever's the easiest. And then what job are you working on? And it's automatically going to enter in the start time based on the system clock time. And at this point, you could go out and work on this job and then come back in, and once you're done with it, you can log back into the job. And let's go to our job again. And it'll automatically fill in the end time based on the system clock time. In this case, I'm an admin on the system, so I'm going to go ahead and say that I worked until, let's say we just worked until noon. And what did I do? I started configuring the components. I can also tell it what parts I used. So we can go ahead and go to the parts usage, and we can go to the parts that were initially created within the job to say, okay, these are the parts that I did use, and issue them one by one. If we had to use something we didn't plan on using, you can pull it from your inventory list and add that as well, or instead of. But if you used everything you planned on using, the easiest way is using the auto issue and saying for our step 10, I used everything that we planned on using. And it'll go through and it'll start issuing those parts. And in this case, the multi thing, it's saying, hey, you don't have enough of these. You have one of them on hand, but you need 4. So where'd you get the other 3? And I'll have to do a manual adjust if I want to fix that. Same thing with the printer. You don't have any on hand. You have 0 on hand. So where did you find it to use it? And now it's gone through and issued all my parts, outside of those ones it gave me the message on. So I can go ahead and click OK, and now I've added my time as well as the parts for that job. So if we go ahead, if anybody goes out in the meantime and looks at our job, you can go to our step 10 and see what parts have been issued and the costs associated with those parts, except for the one that's on the PO and the one where there was the monitor. There were 4 of them required. 1 of them has been used because, again, we have 0 on hand. So we need to do an inventory adjust to issue more. Same thing with the printer. We have a requirement for 1. None were issued because we have none in stock. So again, you'd have to do some kind of inventory adjust or whatever to tell the system where you got the parts that were used. If you go to the Labor tab, it's going to tell you exactly who's been working on this job, how much time they've spent on it, whether or not it's overtime, as well as a summary of the work that's been performed. And if you have rights to do so, you can take a look at the costs associated with these hours. In this case, it's $28 for the 1.7 hours, and almost $5 of that is burden. And again, if you have rights to do so, you can go to the profit analysis and take a look at it by your individual step to see if you have any variances, or by the complete job. And in this case, we're already expecting a variance based on the labor cost because my labor rate is different than the person that we expected to work on this. So it'll immediately show you any cost overruns or any variances that you're going to expect on this particular job. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get out of these screens, and we'll go back to the PowerPoint. So now we have created the price quote by pulling the information in from a template and modifying it. We've turned the quote into an order and notified engineering that it needs to be reviewed before releasing to the production floor. We've given purchasing the tools to determine what parts need to be purchased and when they need to buy them by to meet the schedule. We've addressed the scheduling issues on the production floor, and finally we've collected the real-time data about the job. Now it's time to show how the JobOps field service and dispatch can help clients that provide service or repair for their customers. If you offer after-sales service, operations is concerned that there isn't a system to track the warranties, maintenance contracts, and field service repairs. Finance is concerned that since the costs aren't being tracked, customer service may be losing money. JobOps and MAS90 will provide operations with a field service and dispatch module that is integrated with Outlook to see what needs to be getting done. This module will give finance the cost tracking model to turn customer service into a profit center. So now we'll go ahead and go back into the software, and we'll go into the field service module. Most people work within the field service module from the dispatch board, and the dispatch board is laid out similar to what the scheduling board was, with the days of the week and the hours a day across the top, and your different technicians down the left-hand side. Down in the yellow section are all your open service tickets. In the pink section is some built-in alerts, and in the blue section is the equipment information for the equipment you're servicing. So if I highlight any of the items, it's going to tell me a little bit about the equipment that I'm going to be servicing on that. So if you received a new call from the customer, you click the new call button, and from here, depending on what information you have, is where you would start. So if you wanted to look up the customer number, you could pull the information in from there. If you have serviced this particular thing before, or if you actually made this particular thing that you're servicing, you could pull it in by the serial number of that item, and it will backfill all the other information. If you do it by the serial number, you'll also be able to pull in the information if you have a warranty, if you offered a warranty on this particular thing, and whether or not you have a service contract with that customer. If we go back to the main tab, it's going to tell us, like I said, it backfilled the information, so it's going to tell us who the customer is, who the contact is, as well as some other information about the service call, what kind of contract you have with them, what kind of service level, etc., what the address is that you're billing to, what the address is that the product was shipped to, or where you're going to be going. If you go to the additional tab, you can put in some notes, or the dispatcher can put in some notes as far as what the issue is that they're being told on the phone. So in this case, we'll say the server won't boot, someone spilled something on it. You can also see what the model is on the item that you're going to be servicing, where it's located, when the parts are warranted through, when labor is warranted through, and what kind of contract you have with that particular client. So you can go ahead and accept that, and once you accept it, it's going to show down in your list of service tickets that need to be, or that you guys are currently working on. And again, you're going to have the information about that we had just gone through on the equipment, about the warranty and where it's located. You can also go to the service ticket details to see a little bit more information about this particular service ticket. Now that we've created the service ticket, you can also see who your preferred technician is on this, and if you have a secondary preferred technician. And if that's the case, then you can also go to the parts required / available, and this is going to be a list of any parts that you've set up that are typically needed to repair this particular item. So in this case, we have 3 different items that are typically needed to repair this thing. You can see who has those parts available in their trucks. So you can see that Stacy has 3 of 3 parts. And even though, if we remember from here, Stacy's the secondary preferred technician, since she has the parts available, she may be the one that we want to have work on this particular service call. Susan has 2 of 3, Todd only has 1 of 3. So again, similar to the rest of the system, it's providing you with information so you can decide what you want to do. So if we go back to the service ticket list, once we decide who we want to schedule it with, we can right-click on it and say Schedule. And we can go up to the dispatch board and say we're going to schedule this for 9 o'clock, and we can create the appointment for Stacy. And once that's done, you can go ahead and have it, if you want, integrate to Outlook. And if you have it integrate with Outlook, it's going to create an appointment on the calendar for that technician and say, okay, you have a service call. This is the service number. It's for this customer. The contact there is Tom Johnson. The equipment is the CSYS 300. It's located at 8577 North Chapman, etc., etc. Before they get there, select that appointment and copy it to somebody else's calendar. And let's say that we're going to send Susan out there, but we're not going to send her out there until 4 o'clock to finish it off. And we'll go ahead and copy. And one of the things that it's going to ask us is, okay, since you're going to wait until 4 o'clock, Susan doesn't have enough time in the day, in her working day, to do the 2.5 hours worth of work. So the question is, what do you want to do? Do you want to split this appointment into multiple days? Do you want to cancel the request? Or do you want to make an exception and let her work overtime, basically, into her off hours? So we're going to make an exception, and it's now put it on the schedule, even though her time isn't typically available at that point. But since it's on her way home, we decided that she's going to work on it anyhow. So you can go ahead and schedule it for her. And if we go ahead and highlight the service call again, we can go to the service ticket details, and it's going to show us who's been scheduled and how much time total is on the service call at this point. Another thing that you can do from the dispatch board is if you want to email somebody about the service ticket, you can go ahead and right-click on it and email to the technician, to the customer, to the salesperson, or any other email address, some information about the service call. And you can use different templates to notify the people. So if you want to email the customer, you can send a confirmation to the customer saying this service call has been scheduled at this point, and this is the technician that's going to come out and see you. Or if you want to notify the technician about, with an email, that this has been put on his calendar, you can go ahead and send that email, etc. You can move any appointments around, you can modify them, all that kind of stuff from the dispatch board itself. And we'll go ahead and move on from the dispatch board and assume that the technician has worked on this particular service call and is now coming back and giving you the information about what it is, what work was performed while they were out there. So you can go ahead and go into the service ticket billing, and within service ticket billing you choose who your technician is, what service ticket did they work on, and within here there's a lot of different functionality that you can use. First off, if you highlight the header on this, you can switch your transactions between a partial billing and a final billing. Sorry, wrong way. Whoops. We can toggle the invoice methods and go between partial and final, but we'll do a final one. And if we click on the item that we're going to be billing for, you can add parts, you can add labor, and you can add expenses. You can also have multiple items that you serviced while you were out there and add the individual parts, labor, and expenses for each of those items to be able to track it by the individual piece of equipment that was serviced. If we switch to transactions, we'll be able to see each part, labor, and expense transaction that we make along the way. So we'll go ahead and add a part to our service ticket. And again, you can look up the information many different ways. You can go ahead and go into the full inventory list, or you can do it from the suggested list based on what typically is needed to fix this particular thing. And we're going to say that we needed to replace the memory on it. And it's a lot tracked item, so we need to issue the lot number for it. And you can see from here that parts are covered under warranty, and they're also covered on the service agreement. So if we look at it, we'll see that the unit cost is $220, the unit price is $0, the reference price is $450, and we're billing $0 because it's covered under warranty, because this is a warranty repair. So when I click click OK, you're going to see that we're billing $0 on this particular part. And you can go through all the different parts that way. If we go ahead and add labor, again, it's a warranty repair and labor is covered under warranty. Therefore, this is going to come across as $0. So we're going to say that we worked 5 hours. And if you were only billable 4 out of the 5 hours because you were on the phone or whatever, you'd be able to track that information as well. And you'd be able to track the information as far as what work was performed. So in this case, we'll say replaced memory card. And when I click OK, I can exit out of the screen, and I now have my two different transactions, my labor transaction and my parts transaction. You can also add expenses. So in this case, if you do mileage or hotel or other miscellaneous expenses, you can track those as well. So we'll do a mileage expense and say that we had to go 100 miles round trip for this service call. And you can see that we're charging 59 cents a mile, so it's $59 for this particular expense. And it's not covered under the warranty, so we're going to actually charge for that. So that's going to be the only thing that we bill on this particular service call is the travel charges. So once we have the information in the dispatch billing entry, we can go ahead and either update the changes or update an invoice. I'm going to go ahead and update an invoice, and it's going to take me over to sales order invoice data entry. From here, we can go ahead and take a look at the lines for the invoice that's created. The repair at $0, which is the labor. The material, which is at $0, again because they were both covered under warranty, and our expense for the mileage is going to be charged out. So we can go ahead and go to the totals, make sure that it's okay, and accept it, and now the invoice has been created for this particular service call. At this point, the technician could print out that invoice, or it could be done in-house. It really depends on how you want to work it. once the invoice is entered, you'd run your daily registers, etc., to process it through the GL. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the sales journal quick. And it's going to give us the $59 that we're charging for this. And we can skip through these and update the journal. And now it's been processed through our normal GL processing. And if I go ahead and go into our equipment asset file, we can see a bunch of different information about this particular piece of equipment. If we pull it in by our serial number again that we've been tracking, you have a bunch of different information. You have all your warranty information about when the parts are warranted through, when the labor is warranted through, who the customer is that purchased this, and if they sell it to somebody else, you can go ahead and change the customer information but still keep all the information about the service history for this particular piece of equipment. And it doesn't have to be something that you made or sold them before. This can also be something that you add in after the fact that you're tracking for service, so you can service other people's equipment as well as your own. If we go ahead and take a look at the hierarchy here, we can see what items we wanted to track within this piece of equipment, as well as any kind of labor and warranty associated with that particular piece of equipment within our equipment. So if the vendor was giving us parts warranty on this drive, we'd be able to see that our parts are warranted through 5/9/2010. Therefore, if we had to replace it, we'd be able to bill back to the vendor and get it replaced, get that particular part replaced free of charge, etc. So again, it's providing you with information that you want to track. If we go to the additional, we can see the stats on this particular piece of equipment in our service history. In this case, our total revenue to date has been just shy of $3,600, but our total costs have been almost $4,900. So this one has been a loser so far. We can see that when we originally sold this and who sold it. If we go to the parts, we can see the different parts that are typically needed based on our records. And if we go to the transactions, we can see all our transactions against this particular piece of equipment. And this is the one that we just put in today, which is our service call. We have another service call that happened in July, and then in May we actually sold them this initial piece of equipment. But if we highlight the service call that we just went into, we can drill into the history and actually get back to our invoice where we charged them $59 for the mileage, and we can drill into the service ticket itself and take a look at what happened on the service call. So if we go to the parts, you're going to be able to see the memory that was replaced as well as the mileage for the the general expense for the mileage, as well as if we go to the labor tab, you can see who worked on it, how many hours they worked on it, and again, what they did while they were on this service call. So it's all the information is going to track back to this piece of equipment, so you can keep the full history of what's transacted with this particular piece of equipment that you're servicing for this client. So, last but not least, we'll take a look at the service agreements and how these are set up and what information is included out here. We'll take a look at Alltech, who is the customer for that particular piece of equipment. And we've got a bunch of basic information for the service contract itself that the specifics on the equipment obviously override the basic, but in this case we have a contract with them in place where our standard labor rate is $70 an hour. We bill it to them quarterly, and you can do it monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. It's fixed price, and you have the option of fixed price, time and materials, or prepaid. And what GL account do you want the payments to hit? If we go into the details, we'll see which pieces of equipment are covered under this contract. In this case, we have 2 different pieces of equipment that are covered under this contract. A CSIS 300 as well as a modem. If we highlight any of them, we get the details on the start and end date, what kind of contract it is for that particular piece of equipment. In this case, it's time and materials versus the fixed price or the prepaid. Where that item is located, the standard service hours, as well as the labor rate that we've negotiated for going out and servicing this particular piece of equipment. If we go to the modem, again, we have different start and end dates. This one happens to be prepaid, labor is covered, and parts are covered. And we're going to plan on an hour every time we go out there. If we go to the billings tab, while we're still highlighted on the modem, we'll see that we're billing this because it's, again, a prepaid one. We're billing it quarterly, and again, it's monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. And right now, we're only billed through July, so we're overdue on getting it billed. And our bill rate is basically 20 bucks. If I go ahead and highlight the server again, there's no information on the billing tab because, again, this is a time and materials contract, so there is no billing on it until something happens. If we go to the PM tab now, though, which is for preventative maintenance, you can see that we have 2 different preventative maintenance cycles set up for this server. If I highlight one of them, you can see that every 3 months, which is what the 3M means, and this is going to be continuous, we're going to go out and clean this unit. It's fixed price maintenance contract. We're going to go out there for an hour, and we're charging $25. Labor's included, parts are not. So if you found a part that needed to replace while you were out there doing preventative maintenance, they would get charged for that. But any labor would not be included. If we go to the other one, the other line, you can see that it's once a year. We're going to go out continuous again, and we're going to inspect it. It's going to be a fixed price billing. We're going to expect to be out there for 2.5 hours, and we're going to charge 150 bucks. And again, labor's covered. So you can have different preventative maintenance contracts set up for accomplishing different things throughout the year for this particular customer. You can also, both of these have been continuous, but you can also have a one-time preventative maintenance thing that you go out there once and do something, or you can have something where it's seasonal. So if you're, I don't know, something like a snow removal company or a landscaping company, you're only going to work, well, at least in Minnesota, you're only going to work part of the year doing that kind of business. So that customer would be set up for seasonal work, and it would be from, if you were doing landscaping or lawn care, you'd be able to do it maybe probably from May until October or something along those lines. And you would just do it during that season. And then maybe you have another contract set up for doing snow removal the rest of the year, whatever the case may be. So a lot of flexibility within the service agreement maintenance end of it. So we'll go ahead and get out of here, and we'll go back into our PowerPoint. So that is the story. JobOps is designed to work the way you do, so you can focus on the workflow instead of on the system administration. It's designed to focus on the issues so that you can manage by exception and only address the issues. This concludes the JobOps web seminar today. Thank you for attending. If you'd like more information, please contact us at 800-815-8483, or you can email me at sschultz@jobops.com, or visit our website at www.jobops.com. Thanks very much for your interest, and if you have any questions, again, feel free to contact us. Otherwise, have a great day.